Okay, everyone, we're going to plan to get started here. Hopefully we can get everyone in from outside, but I would like to keep the program going, but I definitely do not want to cut this panel short of time. As many of you guys know, me personally and some now professionally, Thoroughbred Aftercare is something very passionate to me. We've been doing it for a long time. I say we, and I include Stacy Clark, our moderator in this panel. We had the fortunate opportunity to work for the Stronics, and Mrs. Stronic in particular. It was a passion for her, and as we can tell stories of riding into middle of nowhere sort of environments to pick up horses that Dina had adopted through her program and training, it was always something we were willing to do. So we had a great program there, and she's been able to extend it, and now extending it for the nation. So I've titled this panel, this program, and I hope you understand that Aftercare for our thoroughbreds doesn't just need funding. We need funding. We always need funding. You need funding for everything. But we also need solutions. Many times we have several great organizations. They're running in circles, or they don't know what to do for the next step. And yet there's an organization maybe within the same state that has either had that issue, plowed through it, and they found the answer. We got to make that connection, and we've got to keep them together. In addition to that, it's been a big policy of mine in trying to preach. Aftercare now needs to become part of your business plan. It's what I stressed in Las Vegas. Unfortunately, like with everything else, you have some organizations that don't do it properly. They may be doing it just for funding. They need to be doing it for the horse. And so the accreditation process that I've been fully on board with ever since it was initiated, and I was one of those seats for the 13 farms that originally started this, it makes a huge impact now for guys like you to understand that the organization that you're going to either sell or help retrain or rehome your horse to become accredited. Now, not every organization can become accredited, and we know that from their bylaws. It doesn't mean that we have an organization in Iowa, Pennsylvania, but ultimately the TAA is there to help, whether it's through the accreditation process, possibly you can get accredited, or just tips that make your organization what everybody else would aspire to be. But we need solutions, and today, when Stacy and I were planning this panel, we wanted it to feel a little bit more like a town hall meeting as opposed to a panel and experts discussing it. One of the first people that I knew I wanted to have on here was President of Louisiana HBPA, Bernard Chatters, because who else is better to tell you guys as horsemen the importance of trying to get our thoroughbreds into a rehoming and retraining avenue. Now, there's a lot of, and I'm not going to get up here and talk about equine processing. There's a lot of problems that come through that avenue that some people choose to send their horses at the end of their racing career. It's not illegal in the United States, and it's certainly not illegal to sell horses. So I think it's upon us to make sure we educate people to give these guys the knowledge that there is a second chance behind racing. I'm not going to wave a flag in Picton, and as my friend Mike Whittler, we're not going to run into the Picton pen and say we're going to save everything. We got to stop them from getting to the pen. That's where we need the solutions. We need racetrack help, but I think we need horseman help in making sure that we educate. And so this panel, I'm proud to have my close friend Stacy Clark, who doesn't need a lot of introduction to most people because she's probably talked to everybody about 15 to 20 minutes in the room, but the operations consultant for the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. We're also very honored to have Jessica Hammond. Jessica is the program administrator for Beyond the Wire, Maryland's Racing's Aftercare Initiative. In addition to Jessica, we have Michelle Rodriguez, who's the founder and president of Elite Thoroughbreds, but also is involved with the board of directors for the Louisiana Thoroughbred Breeders Association, and also on the board at the Louisiana Horse Rescue. I've mentioned that Bernard Chatters, president of Louisiana HBPA, is on the panel. And then we have an also eligible that had to scratch in. So he's up for the task. He was pre-raced and he's ready to go. Patrick Richmond is the president of Louisiana Horse Rescue, is going to fill in for Dr. Emily Weiss, who was unable to make it due to a plane connection. So welcome our panel, Stacy.
Really good time of telling people, look at what these horses have already done. They've been around tractors, they've been around dogs, they've been around crowds, they've been around cheering. You know, these horses already have so many experiences in life that they can transition, most of them, pretty easily.
Can you guys hear that? Can you, Dennis, do you mind
These
starting
horses
again?
are so trainable, and you're not going to find one with more heart.
You know, 10 years ago, somebody would just be, a lot of us have had a really good time of telling people, look at what these horses have already done. They've been around tractors, they've been around dogs, they've been around crowds, they've been around cheering. You know, these horses already have so many experiences in life that they can transition, most of them, pretty easily.
These horses are so trainable, and you're not going to find one with more heart.
You know, 10 years ago, somebody would just be like, oh, my trainer took care of it. And now I feel that the majority of people can say, my horse went to New Vocations, it went to Rerun, it went to Canter. And all of those organizations are TAA accredited.
The first thing that TA does for any organization is that it gives it credibility.
For me, the sign that the TAA accredited us is the same as the Good Housekeeping sign or the Better Business Bureaus. They created one place where all these people can come together to help all these horses and to help the sport in general, and I think that might be their major accomplishment.
So thanks, everybody. I want to introduce myself. Like Eric said, today I'd like your opinions, your thoughts. I don't want to sit up here and tell you the TAA is the way. I think you need to come to that term yourself. The TAA, I will tell you, has been an accumulation of the industry. We've had lots of problems in aftercare for 20, 30 years, and I'm not new to it, and many of you aren't. But about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, the industry got together with about 60 of the industry's leaders, including people like Eric, and sat down and talked about what can we do. We've had bad press, we've had bad situations, we've had aftercare organizations that aren't doing the job that we thought that they could do when we gave them money to support the thoroughbred. So all of these things have come along, and we've come to a place where we need to come with a program that helps support the horsemen, the industry, the racetracks, and most importantly, the horse, our commodity for our business of horse racing. The 501c3, and I'm going to read your mission statement so we're clear. The 501c3 nonprofit Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance inspects and awards grants to approved aftercare organizations to retire, retrain, and rehome thoroughbreds using industry-wide funding. Since 2013, we have given out $10.8 million to 64 accredited organizations across the country, and 2 of them are in Canada. Since every organization that applies for accreditation has to pass not only an intense application, they also have to pass inspections. We see every single horse at every single facility. We have an inventory program that we work with the Horse Farm Management that works with the Jockey Club. The TAA list of supporters and participants is an ever-growing number of breeders, racetracks, and industry businesses that recognize the importance of a safe first exit from racing for our business commodity. look at, I'd love to change the consciousness of human beings and make sure that we could go along and make sure these horses are going to be taken care of forever. But our responsibility as a business is to make sure that we have an exit plan, a first exit from racing. If any of you are more interested in hearing about this, I won't talk about a lot of things today because I want you to hear from your group and I want you to get engaged with this conversation. But there's a lot of things going on with an International Federation of Aftercare Resources, and one of our favorite groups is the group from Australia. They've moved mountains in Australia, and we can too. Last year, you heard from myself and as well as others to talk about the successful aftercare and the TAA groups. We brought 3 other groups in. We had Mr. McKiles also speak to you about the importance of supporting Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. This year, the panel has been created to talk about horsemen's perspective, community, public awareness, and how we can all work together. Please think of today's discussion as a beginning of many in hopes that we can work together for the betterment of their sport and for our business. And as a good friend of ours said, and I said this last year and I'll say it again, you might like the horse and that's a great reason to do it. You might like the industry, and that's a great reason to do it. You might like making money, and that's a great way to do it. So let's make sure that we think about why we want to do this for our sport, for our business, for the extended community. This is not only a good opportunity for marketing for our sport, this is a good opportunity for us to reach out to sell the very thing that brought us all into this room, and that is the horse. We wouldn't be here if we didn't like the horse. So let me start today, and we're kind of mixed up in our organization here. We're going to start with Mr. Chatters, and I'll ask a few questions. If you guys have questions throughout this conversation today, please raise your hand. I don't need to be the moderator for the whole thing. This is your group, okay? So first of all, Bernard Chatters, the second person here, as we mentioned, how important to aftercare is it to your horsemen, in particular, here in Louisiana?
Well, I think, like you said earlier, everyone who participates in this business, you know, you come to this game for the most part with a love of the horse above all things. And I know through my work with the HBPA here in Louisiana, we support just about any of course we support Michelle and the Louisiana Thoroughbred Rescue Association. And I know in my business, anybody from family members, I had a little cousin that's interesting. She was probably about 6 years old, and her daddy said she wanted a horse. You know, so man, I can get you a horse. Believe you me, I can get you a horse. So I ended up getting 2 horses for her, and about a week ago, she's about to graduate from high school, and some of the pictures that she took for high school were with these horses, you know. And so I saw it on Facebook, of course, and I sent her a text message saying, I'm glad I didn't cast my pearls before swine. But we try, you know, from the polo people to anyone who's interested in horses and who's going to give the horse a second career, or, you know, who's willing to bring the horse to their house. I've had people who just they had a lot of land, and they just wanted some horses out on the land to turn the horses out, you know, to have them there just to watch them. You know, this is a really tough issue, you know, and especially in urban areas where, you know, it's really expensive to house horses, and then even in the rural areas, insurance problems and those things. But, you know, we love the horses, and we're constantly trying to find people who want to you know, help the horse and help give them.
Mr. Chatters, and what do you think are some of the solutions that you could offer for the Louisiana horsemen, or you could sit down and talk about with other horsemen's groups to help the horse in the aftercare?
Well, here we have an opt-in program where we ask all of the owners to agree to give a percentage of their earnings to the Aftercare Alliance. You know, we do that to support, you know, the one thing about the HBPA, I don't want to act as if, you know, we're set up to, you know, it's a constant thing that we're constantly trying to work on, but we don't have all of the answers. We trying to help the horsemen, you know, trying to make sure the grooms get their teeth worked on, and, you know, and all of
There's
the
lots of
host
problems
issues,
for,
right,
yeah,
that we have.
backstretch, yeah.
But, you know, it's just a tough sell, but we love the horse, and, you know, we do whatever we can to help any at any time. You know?
So let's talk about the unique situation here in Louisiana, and I don't know how many other states have this issue with the opt-in.
Can I interject on that one?
Yeah.
I have to say, the HBPA board has been very helpful to Louisiana Horse Rescue, because they had a board meeting. I went to the board meeting, and they agreed to collect the money for us of those people who agreed to opt in, okay? We were asking for $5 or $10 to start. The Racing Commission gave us a mailing list of everybody who was licensed, about 5,000 people. We sent out 5,000 letters, and it was a tedious job, but we only had 50 positive responses. So the part that Bernard's done that's helpful is he set up his bookkeeping department to collect for us if we can get the people to agree to contribute. So what we're doing this year, Patrick has a state legislator that he knows in the Alexandria area, and he's introducing a bill to switch from opt-in to an opt-out program.
Yeah,
like
that
they
was
have
my
in
question
Illinois.
to Bernard, yeah.
And that will be helpful, because people aren't trying to deny us the money. They see this piece of paper that comes, they throw it away, they put it on their desk, they're not paying attention. But if they're already in the program, a lot of them won't go and make the effort to go and opt out, which they'd have to do with the horseman's bookkeeper in order to be exempt from that. So hopefully that'll pass the legislature this year.
And Bernard, do you think that there's any other funding options or models that you could adopt here in Louisiana or for horsemen's groups?
Well, our board, we give not a specific amount of money every year, but based on what monies we have available, we allot that money to Michelle in the Louisiana Horse Rescue. When we were dealing with this issue a few months ago, we had people coming from the national organizations, but our board decided that they thought it was best to try to deal with the local, our local chapter. So that's what we've done. And I'm in constant contact with the racetracks and trying to get them on board. And I know Boyd is coming on. They should have been on board right now.
I'm going to see them tomorrow.
Right, to help too. But it's a constant struggle. I mean, that's, to be perfectly honest about you.
But I do think the racetracks are coming around now, because they're seeking us as opposed to us going to them, because there's been so much bad publicity about the outcome of some of the horses in the state that they don't want that stigma attached to the tracks. So Boyd, who controls 2 of the tracks in the state, Evangeline and Delta, have requested that Pat and I go over there. We visited with them, and they're going to try to work with us, and the Racing Commission's putting together a task force of the other 2 tracks also, and hopefully the Department of Agriculture, so that we can shut down some of the kill pens, and they're going to help fund us.
So sustainable funding is really important. We found at the TAA, it's one thing to get, highs and lows, but it's important to have sustainable funding for your organization. How do you see yourselves getting sustainable funding in the future with these 2 ideas and more?
Well, we're applying for grants. Patrick had good news today, and we had no money. We had 2 major rescues when we got started. We had no funding, and we took on in excess of 100 horses, and it basically put us out of business. It killed us, because we couldn't have the money coming in to help support it. We'd have to do fundraisers and this and that. It's the same 3 or 4 people that are always there for you to help, but we just did not have a good outsource of people and networks. So right now, we will take on a horse if it's being abused or starved and stuff like that. If it's a horse just coming off the track that needs a new home, we'll ask for a donation to come with the horse, and we'll take the horse and work with the horse and move it on. This year, I've been able to get rid of a bunch of horses. The demand right now is higher than the inventory that we really have. Patrick has also, but again, we haven't replenished. A lot of those horses are mine that I'm not doing through Horse Rescue, but we have not allowed a lot of people aren't calling and saying, please, can I give you my horse after the meet and stuff like that. That's what Boyd wants us to do, is to get on the backside and go from stall to stall to the trainers to let them know that we're here, we're available.
Well, that's an important part. I think we've seen that across the country, that if we have an ability to communicate that we have solutions for the horses, that there's places, that there's an infrastructure development. There's programs with the Jockey Club called the Thoroughbred Incentive Program, which we work with closely, and that's the development of horse shows. They went from 75 horse shows to 1,500 plus, and I might be wrong on that guess number. But it's really grown. There's a lot of horses that are in that database. If they are given a tip number, and then you can follow that horse for a long time. Whenever it's showing, you can find out if they're registered with the Jockey Club. So I think the infrastructure development and the creation of Aftercare that really starts to work. You guys have had a roller coaster,
Yes.
like a lot of Aftercare groups. So where do you see yourselves going in the future with this?
We think this is going to be a positive year with the legislation that we're going to try to get through the state Senate and the state representatives, or whatever, get that bill passed. And, with Patrick getting that grant today, he got a small grant today that's a matching grant from what I understand, getting on board with you all and hoping will be helpful to us. And then, and like I said, Bernard's group's there to collect the money for us from the race people. Racetrack.
Just so you guys are clear, with the TAA, the Louisiana Horse Rescue has not been accredited. They've never applied. So they have their application in this year, and we are mentoring with them, trying to get them to that position where they can get accredited this year, hopefully. And then that will put them in with the other 64 groups, and maybe we can move this state up a little bit. And that's something you should all think about for your community. It's important to have this sort of three-pillar situation where you have the racetrack, the horsemen's group, and the aftercare. And usually the horsemen's group and the aftercare come first, and then the involvement for the racetrack comes secondly, because they can see that this is important to the industry. They see it's important to the horses and to the horsemen that are also part of their act of doing business. So let's talk to Bernard for Mr. Patrick for a minute. Patrick, you came in today. Thank you very much for gracefully coming in. Let's talk a little bit about your experience with the aftercare, and as a business person, where do you see this going?
I'll have to back up a minute
Oh, you
and
can
talk
back up
about
right
horse rescue. We've been around for over 12 years in some form or fashion. We've rehomed over 300 horses. We've met a lot of people, made a lot of connections. We have a lot of experience. But to answer your question about moving into the future, we see a need for some type of dedicated funding to operate horse rescue. And we see a need for I don't know if it's a standardization within the industry. We need everyone in the horse racing industry to be on the same page. A couple of things Bernard talked about. Somebody wants a horse, a family member approaches you, can you get me a horse? Oh yeah, there's a lot of people trying to get rid of horses. I can find you a horse. Responsible horse ownership. That's all part of responsible horse ownership. The largest percentage of trainers and owners are responsible. They want their horses to do well for them while they're running. They want their horse to go to a good home. Those are the horses we really don't hear about or we really don't deal with. But it only takes one person, one horse even, or one, person, because of something else Bernard mentioned. Where does he see the pictures of his family member with a horse? On Facebook, social media. Now everything's connected. Something that happens in some remote corner of the state, all of a sudden, is over the whole nation. Because, everyone has a camera, everyone has a video camera, everyone's on Facebook, everyone's on YouTube, it's all connected. So it only takes one horse to bring just this huge load of bad publicity down on the industry, and the publicity falls on the breeder, it falls on the owner, it falls on the racetrack, and it's really just one individual causing all this. But the general public doesn't really know much about our industry. They just know that there's a horse that's abused, and if you've heard the saying, if you can't feed them, don't breed them. They blame the breeder. Oh, it's the breeder's fault for breeding that horse. Or it's the racetrack's fault for even having horse racing. So, the negative publicity is hard to deal with, especially for the racetrack, because it's not really the racetrack's fault that this is happening, but they get all the bad publicity. So they need an organization to partner with to say, hey, we're a partner with the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, or we're a partner with Louisiana Horse Rescue Association, and we're opposed to this happening to horses. We're actively trying to find places for horses to have homes and successful careers after racing. So we would like to be able to find a way to have a legacy plan to continue this into the future.
Bernard, let's ask you a question. As a horseman's representative for the HPBA, you've talked to your other HPBA members and presidents. What do you see this on a national level? Aftercare.
You talking?
No, I'm talking to you. I
Okay.
said you. I said
That's-
Bernard.
okay.
Yeah.
That's
Well, how do you
good.
see this influence? Like, what do you see what is your opinion of aftercare on a national level? As a threat to racing, or as how do you see this?
Oh, no, I think that at any point that we can expose more people in any discipline to horses, I think is a good thing. It's interesting too, I know, we breed these horses to be race horses, but a lot of times they turn out to be better polo horses than race horses too. And so, it's good, in my opinion, when people see the value of a thoroughbred and the things that they can do besides run, that they make great jumpers and, like I said, great polo horses, great brood mares, and, and so it's exposing these horses to as many people as possible. Is doing the work with the legislators to try to secure funding for aftercare and for rehoming and all of these things too. But the truth of it is, and I want to deal in reality, when a man gets a horse or two, or a person, it's not like he has a open pasture where he can just bring on horses and horses and horses, and these horses are coming every day, and at the racetracks, we need, a lot of times, we need, when a man has a horse, and if he's kind enough to say, Mr. Chattis, you take care of the horse and find a new home, I need somewhere to be able to say, Michelle, can you take this horse? Can you come get him? Or, and a lot of times that's a difficult task to do, to achieve. And I do think that the racetracks and the horsemen are sometimes taking a negative blow when people seek out situations that are less than ideal for horses, and they put it on Facebook and, in all of these social media outlets. I know here, to some degree, they're holding horsemen hostage to literally for trainers through no fault of their own. Sometimes the owners will take the horse, and do whatever they need to do with it. 6 months later, that horse ends up, in a sale barn or a feedlot or something like that. And then the people are coming back on the owners or on the breeders, and they're literally seeking, Bernard Chattis, he's the president of HBPA. He had this horse, or he bred this horse 5 years ago. Send me $1,500 and you can have this horse back. So I do think that it's incumbent upon us to realize that a lot of times situations are being blown out of proportion, or people are being abused.
Yeah, and I think you speak for
Right.
many of you at large here that this is a constant thing. We're seeing this in Facebook, we're seeing it in social media, we're seeing the blame in the wrong place, misinterpretation, whereas Eric always says we do a really good job of supporting the bad story, and we maybe could do a better job in this industry in supporting the good story, all the good things that are happening. So I'm going to not take up too much time, because I want to leave time for you guys to ask a few questions. I want to introduce Jessica Hammond. We spent a lot of time together in the last few years. Jessica comes from Maryland. The Maryland Horsemen's Group was not too interested in aftercare about 7 years ago. In fact, flat out told me no when I went to propose something. And we then came back and started helping them and working with their groups and helping them get accredited. And then all of a sudden the floodgates opened. And Maryland, I think, has done an outstanding job. And there's a big fear when you're a horseman's community, you don't want to give away your money to another state. It's a little colonial, but we do it. We kind of think, oh no, I don't want that money going to that state because the New York bred's got this and the Florida bred's got that. And so even though I can preach all day long that it's the sum of the parts and it will help everyone, I think you need to take some some advice, maybe some thought process about being able to control your own coffers, being able to see the outcome of your own industry in your community that reflects throughout the industry. So NITHA has a great program. Karma has a great program that it works with California, and probably one of the most outstanding programs to date is the relationship that we have with the Maryland Thoroughbred Horsemen's Group and their racing entity. So I'm going to introduce Jessica Hammond. I'm going to sit down. If you have any questions at any time, we'll answer them. Jessica has a nice presentation. You can come up here if you like, and please ask her anything.
Not anything.
No, okay, not anything.
Good afternoon. I got a cough drop in, so I apologize if you hear it clicking around. Are we going to do the PowerPoint now? Let's start with that, I guess. Yeah, okay. Well, I want to address one thing that Stacy wanted me to talk about, which was kind of why we decided to do this. First of all, ethics. It's, the right thing to do to take care of your horses. That's just basic to me. We also wanted to provide a service to our horsemen. Most of our horsemen want to retire their horses safely, and they attempted to do that. Some successfully do. A lot of people successfully retire their race horses to good second careers without a program, but there are some that thought they were getting good homes for their horses, and it turned out 2 weeks later, a month later, they weren't. So we created this program, work with the TAA, and that gives us an extra kind of security net. And the other thing that Stacy mentioned is we wanted to run our own program within the industry. One of the things that we had happen recently is there were some people that call themselves aftercare advocates. They don't have any official position, that were attacking us on Facebook, the industry in Maryland, that is, things like that. And it took over the course of a year, but we ended up in the House of Delegates. They got one sympathetic delegate and that was concerned about animal welfare, which we are too. And they wanted to take some of our purse money and mandate it to go to Aftercare. Well, luckily, we already had Beyond the Wire, which started in 2017 around Preakness time, and the delegates felt that these people were wasting their time. They said they've already got this good program in place, what are we here for? But that's the point that it got to, within a year, just from Facebook, just from a few people that weren't even in the industry, just a little bit of bad publicity, we actually ended up in the House of Delegates with 14 of us speaking. We won, if you want to call it a winner or loser. We were the winners. But you don't want to get to that point if you don't have to. There's always going to be people that are kind of anti-horse racing, as you well know. But if you have a good program in place and you show that you care about your horses, that's a start. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our actual program to give you guys some ideas if anybody's thinking about starting a program. So first of all, again, some of our goals were that we mainly wanted to secure safe and enriching opportunities for second careers for our racehorses, or safe homes if they couldn't have a second career. We wanted to provide the service to our horsemen ourselves. We also offer educational opportunities. That was another goal. And we wanted to show the public that our industry cares for our horses. That's a huge deal nowadays. And it should be. You've probably heard tale of the greyhound racing. We don't see that really so much anymore. The circus, the elephants are gone. Maybe some of that needed to happen, but this is not only ethical. That's the main reason for doing it, is because it's ethical. We want to take care of our horses, but it is also a marketing issue. People want to see that we take care of our horses, that we care about our horses. And in the marketing section yesterday, somebody was talking about doing behind the scenes videos and things like that for social media. And I think one of the reasons they work so well and they get so much attention is because people like to see the relationship between people and horses. They don't want to just see you looking at the horse as a commodity. So we can go to the next place. This is an industry-wide initiative for Maryland. So this program that I run, Beyond the Wire, was started by the Maryland Jockey Club, the Maryland Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association, and the Maryland Horse Breeders Association. We get funding from each one of them annually, and we also just get support from them. And owners and jockeys also contribute on a per start basis. So we have, it's $11 per start for owners. Out of all the owners licensed in Maryland, we've only had one owner opt out. And that was because that person had a farm and felt that she was taking care of her own horses, so she didn't want to pay the $11 per start. But generally, it's 99%, participation, and the jockeys did this voluntarily, and they're actually working on trying to increase their contribution.
How much do they contribute?
To tell you the truth, I don't know, but I know that they're trying. I don't know what the figure is this year, but what they're aiming for this coming year is $60,000 for the year.
Okay.
Just from the jockeys. So next, I wanted to talk about why we work with the TAA. And one of the reasons, well, the big reason for us is that we are busy at the racetrack. TAA goes out, they're on foot, they're the boots on the ground. They actually go see these facilities. They make sure that they're doing what they say they're doing, what they're supposed to be doing, that they're retraining horses well, that they're taking care of them, that they're financially stable and sound, because you won't really find a lack of rescues necessarily that want to take horses from the racetrack because they see. In Maryland, I don't know how it is in other states, but they assume that the racing industry has money, they want to take horses, and then we get phone calls saying, hey, I got a horse that had some Maryland connections 12 years ago, like, you want to send me some money for this? So not all rescues are created equal, and we have some kind of security level when we use a TAA facility that they've already been heavily vetted by Stacy and her colleagues, so that just does a lot of the work for us. Getting started. So the way that we got our program started, as I said, it's only 7 or 8 months old now. We had members from all of the main organizations that I mentioned to you, the Jockey Club, the Horse Breeders, the Horsemen's Association, and everybody got together and we just had meetings talking about that there is a need for an aftercare program and how were we going to fund it, that sort of thing. Then we were lucky enough to go up to New York and meet with Andy Belfiore from NYTHA, who runs Take the Lead, and just picked her brain. We all took notes. There was 10 of us crammed into a room. How do you do this? What do you do about that? How much money do you send with a horse like this? What do you do about shipping? Like anything and everything we asked, and they were more than happy to give us answers to all of that. We then created a website for the program and an intake form. And then I went out and was the boots on the ground at our location, and I contacted service providers. I contacted our track vets, I contacted our shippers, and said, you know, who's interested in working with us to do this? Who's interested in giving us discounts? And all of our track vets do this for free. We don't have to pay for it. They do evaluations for us, which I'll get into, but they donate their services pretty much fully. And our shippers give us discounts. So it was kind of setting up those relationships in advance before we actually launched the program. You can go to the next one. So just jump in. And I put that in there because I've had other groups that are interested in doing a program like this, and they feel like it's a daunting task. You kind of just have to get the idea and how you want your program to run and ask people like I asked Andy Belfiore questions. You can contact me, you can contact Stacy. We talk to Stacy a lot. And just start the program because you're not going to have everything perfect from the get-go. You're going to start, you know, working on the ground, dealing with these horses, dealing with, you know, facilities to send your horses to, and you're going to have to tweak things along the way, and that's okay. You just kind of have to get started. There's no, you know, you figure out things that works certain ways better than others, and then you can adjust that as you go, but it's no reason to keep you from, you know, starting. The process that I go through, so I get a phone call from an owner or a trainer that says they want to retire a horse, and my office is located right at Laurel Park. I also go to Pimlico once a week. I have an office there too. So they sometimes, if they're really organized, they have the intake form, the front page already filled out. Normally I get on Equibase and fill out part of it for them, and they fill out the rest. And then and on our form, just so you know, we do ask for donations. It's not required because our main concern is the horse and getting the horse a good home, good second career. But we do definitely appreciate and encourage the donations because even though they do the $11 per start, I'm just making this up, but if you say a horse starts, you know, runs once a month, say, some more, some less, that's only $200. That, you know, $200 and some dollars. That doesn't really get you very far. So we do ask for donations. Most people give donations. We send a letter out after the horse has been moved to the facility because I think like you were talking about with your opt-in and out thing, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. The trainers are usually the ones working with me to retire the horse, and the owners aren't there, so they kind of forget. So once the horse has gone through the program, we send a letter reminding them, and we usually get donations that way. So anyway, We do the form, the intake form. And then I contact the track vet who meets me at the stall with the trainer, hopefully, to do the evaluation of the horse, just so we kind of know if there's any injuries, issues, things we need to take care of. And so our TAA facilities know what they're getting, because that helps them get the best home that they can. And it also keeps our relationship with the TAA facilities good, that they are getting what I say they're getting. So our vets have been invaluable to us. They even do x-rays for free when needed. So after we evaluate the horse, or I evaluate the horse with a vet, I take a picture of the horse, post it on the Beyond the Wire website, and I contact one of our TAA facilities to see who has space. And then I set up shipping and ask the trainers to send their papers with each horse and a current Coggins. And, you know, the papers, each of one of these TAA facilities should have kind of a procedure to retire the papers. I already mentioned that we send out the letters. And so we send stipends with each horse. That's what all this money goes to, that our three organizations and the jockeys and the owners, the bulk of the money goes because we send stipends with each horse for their care, anywhere from $500 to $2,500 typically. We also pay for shipping when needed. And in addition, I think I mentioned this somewhere else, but I'll mention it now while I'm thinking of it. In addition to the stipend that we send to the TAA facility, we do give money to the TAA as well, directly, because as I said, they're doing a big service for us by going out and evaluating the facilities that we use. So they get money directly from us, and then their facilities get money with each individual horse for the horse's care. Where do we stand today? So we have developed a network of 6 TAA accredited facilities, and that's so far so good for us. I mean, we don't have a problem with horses getting backed up. I can usually move a horse within a week of the owner or trainer calling me. Since the end of May, we've put about 60 horses through the program. And some other things that we've come up with is our bedding terminals at Laurel and Pimlico actually have a feature on them where you can donate money to the TAA directly. You just hit a little button and say how much you want to donate. Another thing that we know that I've already mentioned too is that, you know, you can modify the program as it goes. You don't have to keep it the same. The main things are that you are meeting the needs of the horses and meeting the needs of your horsemen. And that's it. That's us.
I have a question for you then.
Uh-huh.
What happens if the horse does not vet out well? Say it's got a major bow tendon situation. What do you all do with horses like that?
So we do pay for surgeries when necessary, and a lot of our TAA facilities provide layup services. So that would be the top level of our stipend. We would give the $2,500 with a horse like that, and I know which facilities of mine to call that can take care of a horse like that, but plenty of our TAA facilities are available to handle things like that, and we'll send them from surgery directly to one of the TAA facilities. I have particular ones that I prefer to use for such a thing.
So when you send the stipend, that's it? You don't have to deal with that horse in that
Well,
facility ever again then?
I don't have to, but I do because I want to keep my relationship with the facilities good. That's important. And if, you know how horses are, they can say, this is going to heal in 2 months and you're going to be fine, and it doesn't go that way.
Right.
So they may call and say, hey, you know, this is going to take a little while longer than anticipated, and if I want to, it's at my discretion. I can send some extra money.
I think it's important to, oh, sorry, do you have a question?
Do you actually transfer ownership then of the horse to that facility's owner?
So our organization purposefully never takes ownership of the horse, and the ownership of the horse stays with the owner until hooves are on the ground at the TAA facility. So they belong to the owner until they get to the facility, and then they belong to the TAA facility.
I think it's important to remember this is a horsemen's group initiative that works in conjunction with their aftercare groups, their racetrack, and with the TAA. Now, when they talk about the funding that they give the TAA, I want to emphasize that over the last 5 years, the TAA has given over almost $800,000 to the state of Maryland. They've given less, maybe around $125,000. So the give back, because of the collection of things like Eric was part of with the stallion seasons in Kentucky, have really fundamentally helped it grow. So there is a lot of argument against, well, we want it in this state, it got to work for us, but the sum of the parts does work. And when they give us money, it just gives us an incentive to make sure that that much more money designates back to them.
Any other questions?
So if you are working with limited funds, to give to several different individuals?
Well,
You know, since you do.
you're talking to me, the question? Yeah, so yeah, if you're working with limited funds, I think it's a good idea. You know, I've had some horsemen's groups say, well, I'll give you $10,000, you take care of all our horses. I am not making that promise, right? There's no way. However, it does help us incentivize, you know. Mr. Hiles the other day had somebody that needed a help with a horse. We can call up one of our groups and say, you know, can you take this horse for this group? Because we know that the Kentucky Horsemen's Group has been a big supporter since the beginning. So we'll do that, and we'll help find organizations and horses match up. Do they give us most of our money? Absolutely not. But what it helps develop is a network. And what's really great about the Maryland Horsemen's Group and the NYTHA group that with Andy Belfour and Karma is that it starts this triage program where we could do the same thing here in Louisiana with these guys and with other horsemen's groups for all of you to help you triage the horse from the track into accredited organizations and then to second homes. And we're done with this first exit from racing. Our responsibility, our due diligence of taking care of our commodity is over.
You will still get calls, though, for horses that have been off
Yeah,
the track for
promise
11
that.
years.
Yeah.
But that's not what we do. All right, you really can't ask me anything now.
Anybody have any questions? Yes, Eric.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the statute and where it stands as far as creating the out situation?
I mean, I can tell you about it, but you know, with the legislature, when you go in one door, you may come out another one. So we've tried to make this happen in the past. We have gotten the Louisiana Horse Rescue Association as one of the charitable organizations that you can donate a portion of your Louisiana state income tax refund to, the last time we asked for this. So something a little different happened. So we're trying it again. Once again, you never really know what's going to happen. It may not, but what we're trying to make happen is we're asking for a change in an administrative code. It's some wording that has to be changed to allow the HBPA to distribute a percentage, which is determined by the owner of the racehorse, a percentage of the winnings to Louisiana Horse Rescue. Now, also with that, we have the same, under the same program is the money per start, which you know, we ask for $5 a start from the owner. If the owner wants to give $10 a start or $2 a start, you know, that's up to them. But we ask for $5 a start, and we tried to keep the monetary amounts out of the legislation to where the monetary amount could be determined by the owner, but it would allow them to determine a percentage. You know, they could say, well, you know, if my horse wins, I want to give a percent or 2% of the earnings to the Horse Rescue Association, and then Bernard with the HBPA, the Louisiana HBPA, they collect the money for us and send it to us. They already have that in place, so that wouldn't really be any different. But the way the administrative code is worded right now, we cannot, or no one can deduct a percentage of any winnings. The winnings must go to the owner right now.
What is your thought on, or at least your gut feeling on where you think that is going to end up? Do you feel like it's got a very good chance of passing? What sort of lobby initiatives do you have behind it?
I think it has a 50-50 chance this year. I think there's been a lot of negative publicity about the way Thoroughbred Aftercare is in the state of Louisiana, and it has caused the racetracks, in particular Boyd Gaming, to come out in support of this program. We have the support of the HBPA. We have the support of I approached the Quarter Horse Breeders Association at one of their board meetings. We have support of the Quarter Horse Breeders Association. We have the support of the Louisiana Thoroughbred Breeders Association. We have the support of the HBPA. We have the support of the Racing Commission. Now we got the support of Boyd Gaming, and surely it's only a matter of time we have the support of Churchill Downs and Harris.
So I want to ask a question to Bernard, and I'm almost positive Charlie is in here. Again, we kind of wanted to create a little bit of a town hall feel. Is Charlie in here? Is Judy? Is Ray in here? Okay. So there is some talk about you know, Boyd Gaming in particular, they put out their initiative to make everybody aware that if you're in this system of selling horses into what we call the kill pen, slaughter pipeline, you know, they don't get stalls, right? We all know that most of those horses don't actually stable at the racetrack. Do you have an opinion, and then maybe from the commission, do they have an opinion of the next step? They deny entries to individuals such that get caught in that position. In other words, take one step a little bit more harshly. Instead of just denying the stalls, which everybody can get around, the next step is, do we go into a denying entry? And then legally, can you do that?
I've talked to Judy about this before, because she's on the committee, and Mike Mahaffrey also. And I think Judy is going to form the task force that we're talking about with the racetracks, the Department of Agriculture, the HBPA, all of the horse groups in the state. And, you know, Mike's been he's been so supportive of everything, because he truly is a horseman, and he understands what goes on the backside. And I do think the Racing Commission is going to have to start taking a firm stand, because, again, Boyd can only deny stalls, but they can't strip anybody of their license. You know, and I get emails every day from people in California all over the place of these horses in the kill pens, and the Department of Agriculture's got to do their job and shut down those kill pens. So it's going to take the effort of everybody to make certain changes.
Let me ask Bernard a question.
Go ahead.
Do you not, as a representative of the Louisiana HBPA, have the authority to deduct money out of owner's account for whatever?
No, not,
You don't deduct anything at all?
no, we deduct, we deduct those things that are statutorily mandated, and we deduct things that people agree. You know, we have the opt-in program, and if the owner, you know, signs and says that we can deduct the money, then we deduct it. I'm sitting here and I'm brainstorming, and I think some of the best times the best time, I was just whispering to Michelle a second ago, some of the best times are, I think, when a person wins a race, and that happens 9 or 10 times a night. You know, somebody, you know, 9 or 10 times a night, somebody is going to win. And I was just telling her, I think that you're in much better shape or in this state, now I'm going to put it that way, this is pretty much a blue, I think about our horsemen here as blue-collar horse owners in this state, and, you know, the margins of profit are really thin for the average participant in the horse racing in this state. But I do think if it's $10 a start that we need to fund Louisiana Horse Rescue, you know, for the year, that would, you know, somewhere 180, 200,000 a year was the number that we came up. I thought to myself, I think that I could pitch it a whole lot easier to my membership if we went out and we asked for $100 when you win a race, as opposed to $10 for every participant who's running. Go ahead.
So I just want to say to your point, Bernard, and that's really important to keep in mind. It doesn't have to be one way. Karma does it on the win, place, and show, and that's awesome. Long Run and Works organization up in Canada works from off the purse structure. You guys can talk to Glenn in Florida at the HBPA there. They do a completely different thing where before the purses even hit the condition book, that's already been skimmed off the top. So it doesn't have to be per start, per win, and tax the poor guy that keeps, you know, having to pay every other fee to get that horse in a race and then comes back within a negative. But it certainly is one option. And to the point of being set up, every racetrack in North America has the ability to do anything from the Horseman's Bookkeeper. That was set up 5 years ago with the TA and the Jockey Club. So you don't have to pay for a fee to have that done. That's already been done. How you want to do it is in your plate. And I think these are good brainstorming ideas, but really it doesn't have to be based on $5 per start or $10 per start.
One other thing, Bernard, you shouldn't have any trouble getting Fairgrounds/Churchill Downs to go in, because we had very little resistance in Kentucky.
Once they got started, yeah, Mr. Howes, that's right.
And our racetracks matched our donations, what they did. We teetered with doing an opt-in thing, but we finally decided we weren't going to get many people to do this, so we did.
Opt-in doesn't work. Yeah.
And we charge $5 a start for every race, okay? So, and then the racetracks match whatever we get from that, they match it. And I think last year, Stacy, it was like $158,000.
Total, yeah, we've had a good run with Churchill Downs every year,
I
yeah.
know you guys sometimes can take money off the top of your first program for whatever, HBPA or your medical funds, whatever. Maybe you need to look into just taking a portion off the top before the first distribution is put down and ask the racetracks to match it.
Well, our purse, here in the state, we, we have basically what we call a pony lead fee. But those numbers are statutorily dedicated here. We can't go in and take purse money. I wish we could a lot of times, say, well, we're gonna direct, these funds. Even trying to take purse funds to pay down like they do in most states, we run into some difficulty getting those things. But we're gonna work, we're gonna really, I'm sitting here saying, and I'm gonna commit our lobby effort to trying to help to come up with a funding mechanism to help with the Thoroughbred Aftercare. And I do think that we can start up. Really, it's almost, a philosophical thought process that we have to get to our members that, right, while you participate in this business and you love horses, you have to be mindful of what happens to them after they run. And I think with a concerted effort, we can do better than we're doing.
I think if you just go to your trainers and ask them to contact their owners, it's much easier than you trying to run down every owner. You just go to the trainer, you may have 2 owners, you may have 20. Have him send something out to them and ask them, say, look, we're trying to take care of these 4 animals that give their heart and soul to you for your pleasures. Let's donate something back to take care of them now. They deserve a good life too.
Yeah, based on what I think we're gonna be in better shape here using the HBPA as the instrument of contacting owners and, and then the trainers here. Now, that may work, better for you in Kentucky and stuff, but we have the mechanisms in place to, I think, to work better with it. From what I know, from dealing with our people day to day on the rail and stuff, I don't want to, it's a little different in a jurisdiction like this than in Kentucky where, I know they have poor horse trainers and poor horse owners in Kentucky too. But here, like I say, it really is a blue, we have people who, majority of our people who run racehorses here are in fact trying to make a living with a racehorse. And so what sounds small to a lot of people is, is in that margin of making a little bit of money today. But I have found, like I was saying, when you win, you can get a lot more done, I think, asking people, because I can tell you, I'll get a lot of resistance from my people when I go to them and say, I'm gonna just use the fat $10, man, we want $10 a start. And I can tell you, immediately it's gonna jump to, well, you're already getting $65 a start for insurance and you're getting $20 for the pony league, we up to, but I really do believe, I know how happy I am when I win a race. The picture lady asked me, how many pictures? Give me 10 of them. Right.
Yeah.
A bigger number. If you ask for 5, you guys are charging them $25 already, I think it is, for a pony fee. Every time they run on it.
Well, but that pony fee, just so that everybody understands, it's not a pony fee. That we get $18, but that's a fee that you have small breakouts for insurance, for workers, not workers' comp, but workers' comp is supplemented through that fee, and medical benefits that we offer, dental benefits, and everything comes out of that. That's not a pony, it has that name. And believe you me, we answer that question, man, I'm already paying for the pony, but that's just a name that was tagged on it many years ago, and it's better for us not to go back to the legislature to change the name. But a lot of things come out of that fee.
But he is right, and that's why Patrick wanted to go in for a $5 start fee instead of 10, because it would be more palatable to some of the people out there, particularly in the Opelousas, Lafayette area and the Vinton area. But Boyd did say last time Patrick and I met with them that they would be willing to consider some sort of a match situation also, which would be an incentive over and above the $15,000 per track donations, so,
Commitment from Churchill, if you guys get the program in.
yeah.
We have a verbal commitment from Churchill.
That's awesome then, okay.
It's good for everybody.
It is, because right now, everybody's blaming Boyd. So when all these women Facebook all over the place, and, I mean, they're hammering Boyd Racing like you would not believe. These people need to align themselves with us, just so they can post on their Facebook that we are now affiliated with Louisiana Horse Rescue, and we're gonna do all we can, and they have said that they're happy to deny stalls, and it'll filter down to the trainers a little bit, because if Joe Blow wants 20 stalls, and they're gonna say, no, I'm only gonna give you 5, how much did you donate to Horse Rescue? You see what I'm saying? If the tracks really get on board and are serious about it, which, for the first time in all these years, I feel like in the last couple of months, we're getting some serious conversation from the racetracks. Before it was, we'll give you 1,000, we'll give you a pig roast, you know, we're gonna have a bowling tournament, here's $300. You see what I'm saying? It was all these little piddling things that didn't help us at all. And, you know, fortunately, the horses are with me and Patrick, and we get paid when we have money, and if we don't have money, we don't get paid, you know, so we just add it to our herd, so,
But it is, it's still very important, and this is very important, that I want to support, we do support, and we are going to support Thoroughbred Aftercare. We already doing it, we're going to do a better job of it, but we still have to make sure that some fella, like I said, who, through no fault of his own, a horse ended up and this literally happened this week. A fella had a horse trainer. You know, the owner took the horse from him a few months back, and the horse ended up, you know, at an auction sale barn. And then the racetrack is coming to this man saying, this horse ended up in a slaughter situation, and we're gonna deny your stalls. And the man says, man, he comes to me and he says, I didn't own the horse. You know, Mr. Gene or whatever took the horse, brought it home, and then it ended up, and I was the last person of record, and now I have the racetrack coming to me saying that they're gonna cut out, you know, my livelihood, which is at the racetrack. And so I think that it's really important that everybody understands that there's no one size fits all to solve this problem, and that, you know, our mission as the HBPA is to really make sure that we protecting the horsemen too. And so, you know, while we want to protect the horse, but I certainly can't have my constituents getting ruled off of the racetracks and those kinds of things for.
Well, that's why it's important to have a first exit. And if
Right.
you're working with accredited groups, then you have that first exit, and you don't have that issue,
Right.
because you know the trainer put it in the right spot. Having a triage like Jessica, right?
Yeah, and I wanted to back up to what Eric was asking earlier. You may know this, but the Stronach Group actually does deny entries also. It's not just stalls, it's also entries if your horse is found in a situation like that, and that's at all of their racetracks. And to address what you were just talking about, when we have a horse that ends up in a situation like that, and to tell you the honest truth, it rarely happens anymore. Since I've been running this program, I've not heard of a horse that went from directly from the racetrack to a slaughter or an auction from Maryland. It hasn't happened. But when we have a situation where it seems like the proximity time-wise is close by, they just were racing like 5 months ago, 4 months ago, 2 months ago, and they ended up there. That doesn't happen that often either. But when it does, we actually research it. You know, they don't just throw the book at them. Our racing secretary, Georgianne Hale, the vice president of racing, I guess, too, she'll track down the chain of events and see what happened. And, you know, she's implemented things that say the person, you know, their intentions were good, but they didn't do their due diligence. If we have to pull a horse, she's actually had people have to pay for that out of their, you know, purse money, out of their purse account. Things like that, but we don't just do a one-size-fits-all either. That's the general rule, but when, you know, there is still investigation that's done to see how the horse went there.
I kind of want to come back to, you know, the topic of this is horseman finding solutions, not just funding. So Bernard, you talked about it very early on, and one of the things you said, which we're starting to run into this quite frequently now in the last year or two. Horsemen are finding homes they will need for a horse, you know, trusting this individual. In a few more months, they come back and all of a sudden get the horses on a website saying, oh, this horse is going to slaughter now. This guy didn't take care of it. More or less, they're now being asked to pay a ransom to get back, you said 1,500, I've heard up to 2,500. To say, look, this guy didn't take care of the horse. Now, usually we're able to track down, different tracks of different policies in place and say, look, the guy did do his due diligence. But you still have owners and trainers that will try to repurchase the horse. My thought is, aren't we kind of contributing to that problem at this point then by purchasing back these horses?
That's a real problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what is, you're the panel, what's the solution to doing?
Well, having that, so getting right back to, so this is not a new problem, right? We've had this problem for decades. And now it's really getting, because of social media, getting exposed even more and more. And the reality is it will happen. It will happen. A horse will go through a organization and be out of the system for 10 years, and then it will end up in a bad spot, and then there'll be all this push. You'll say, hey, ho, big disaster, horrible breeders, horrible industry, this is the worst. It's not. And that's why I really, there's a wonderful program in Australia. And Australia lost their dog racing, and there's a little bit of it left, but they lost it because they couldn't implement a program. So the horsemen said, you know what, we need to fix this. And about 7 years ago, they really put into a solid program. Dr. Elliot Forbes Google him, he's amazing. He's done a great program there, and they do a first exit. And I asked him that same question 3 years ago in England. I said, what about after? He said, that's not our job. And that's the key thing here. We are looking for a first exit from racing. Yes, I am worried about all the horses out there, probably not as much as some and probably more than others. But the reality is we need to have a responsible code of conduct for our industry. None of us have enough time to change the consciousness of everyone. But if we can say that we've found this horse and it went through a TA accredited program, you've done your job, you guys can continue racing, you can continue fighting with the horsemen's group and the racetracks and go back to ADW talks and all those medication things. But without aftercare, we don't have any of those problems. If we don't solve this problem, we don't have any of those other problems.
Well, just to bring that point up, and unfortunately, one of the panelists that couldn't make it, that actually was hopefully something we could have addressed with the ASPCA, but unfortunately they weren't here. But just a very quick example, probably 3 weeks ago, I was contacted again from Louisiana. There were 4 horses that were shipped just from the racetrack to the Thompson kill pen in Picton, right, Mike? And so it's all on social media, right? And Patrick said it first. I mean, it's become a very difficult situation because, as we all know, emotion sells, and that's what's happening. So my honest opinion is I can't do anything until you identify the horse, make sure it's a thoroughbred, and then maybe I can do something. So again, these were horses supposedly just off the track. So they sent me via DM on Twitter the 4 tattoo numbers. So I looked them up, pulled them up on Equibase. A 16-year-old, a 12-year-old, and 2 9-year-olds. So you got to be real careful with some of these folks that are trying to, get you to help by sending more money. Because, as John alluded to, it sometimes just exacerbates the problem. Dr. Clara Finger, who's not here, also very passionate about this issue, but also says that these guys are the best marketers she's ever seen, because they know how to market their product and get more money possibly than what it's worth. Because you can't put right or wrong on emotion. You just have to remember we're trying to get it at that first step. And to me, it's an educational process. It's something that we need to do our due diligence and just educate the thoroughbred side of the world. We can't worry about the other side. You got the Quarter Horse Association. They're actually campaigning in Washington, D.C. for processing. I'm not going to get into that argument. We're just trying to get into rehoming and retraining after they're done racing. And hopefully, if we can prevent them going into that side right off the track, we've done our job. So.
Can I make a comment too?
No.
Please. She said ask me anything. I'm opening up here. To address, you use the example, I think, of months, when it's been off the track for months sort of thing. That's why we created our program, was pretty much that exact situation. Our trainers, for the most part, all want good retirements for their racehorses, but some of them were finding that they had, given their horse to somebody who promised it a good home. I have a 100 jumper barn, this horse would be great for that. They take them, and 4 months later, they end up somewhere good. So one of the main things is making sure that the first place that they go is a good place. You can't, if we're talking years, that's a different story. That's kind of out of our league. But when it's only months, that's one of the reasons we use the TAA facilities, because one of their policies for all of our facilities is that they'll take back any horse at any time for any reason. So if a horse gets adopted out and it doesn't turn out to be what the person thought it was, or it's not as sound as they thought it was, or whatever, no questions asked. They can just return it, and that's a huge safety net for us. They don't have to make phone calls. They don't have to do a lot of work to get it off their property or whatever they want to do. It's just simple when you work with the TAA facilities. And a lot of the trainers are giving up the possibility of making money off these horses now because they'd rather know that the horse was not going to come back to haunt them, so to speak, later on. Instead of getting $1,000 or $3,000 for a horse that they thought was sort of saleable and being uncertain of, where they're going to end up in 6 months, they're now retiring them through the program in a lot of cases, whereas they might not have before because they have the ability to get money. But it's not really worth $1,000 for the heartache that, you can go through publicly if it doesn't go well.
Well, this has been a great panel. We could go on for a couple more hours, I'm sure. But I appreciate everybody here being available for us, and touchy topic, but very important to us all. So thank you guys very much.